First he scratches, now he's going to try to eat his own foot. I love the dog. Get this back to where it's supposed to be. There we go. Okay, so if you read the title of this video, you know that this is going to be a video about how Kaido acts as a father. You know, the different ways that we've seen Kaido act kind of as a paternal figure for different characters throughout One Piece. The main one, of course, being Yamato, but I'm kind of going to go through these in the subsequent order as far as we're aware that they met. So I'm going to talk about King, I'm going to talk about Yamato, I'm going to talk about Ulti and page 1. So, for that though, I need a couple of background things. So first, I know this is not the the Chinese, Japanese style of a dragon. This is a fire, or sorry, Oh frick! I know this dragon's name is from How to Train Your Dragon. Damn it, Stormfly. Like, in there somewhere. Stormfly. This is Stormfly from How to Train Your Dragon, which I love, so we're going to put her in the background. It's a her, not a him, and I'm talking about a different dragon, but I wanted to use a different dragon in the background than some of the other ones I used. And then, oh, Rainy's like, I'm going to move. And then I have this fluffy, that, you know, kind of looks like a white wolf, which is, of course, what Yamato turns into. You know, is going to go back here as well. I think that Stormfly and Yamato would actually get along rather well if they ever met in real life. And we got Rennie in the background popping up every now and then. So, let's just get started for kind of where I wanted to go with in regards to just kind of the relationship that Kaido has had with some of the more, with the younger members that's been around him or so over the years. So, just with Kaido himself, we know that he's Kaido the Beast. We know that he is 59 years old. And we know that pretty much everything that's happened to him in regards to, you know, any of the quote-unquote children that have popped up into his life are, you know, happened, you know, within the last 38 years. Everything that happened at God Valley. You know, so we know that everything has happened after that because we know that Yamato is 28 years old and that Ulti and Page 1 are both younger than that. Now, first I'm going to talk about King. So King the Conflagellation, or Alder, I think is the original name that we found out is his original name, his Lunarian name. He is 47 years old. Now, we know that that Kaido did not like raise King. We know that they met when they were about, you know, sometime about 30 years ago is what it's kind of estimated to be, when King was still like a teenager. We know that they met on Punk Hazard, where they were both being held captive by the world government and, of course, experimented on, probably when, you know, Vegapunk got the lineage factor out of Kaido and used that to make Momonosuke's artificial devil fruit, and, you know, just like experimenting on King because he was one of the only Lunarians that they had. And we know that eventually, you know, that King and, you know, Kaido escaped, that, you know, Kaido kind of broke out, and he had seen, like, King had impressed him in the fact that, you know, King had stood up to, oh, the dog's leaving. Okay. King had impressed Kaido in the fact that, or Alder at this time, had impressed Kaido in the fact that he was able to withstand the torture, you know, and didn't break and everything. And, you know, Kaido was impressed with that, and he took him with him, and he's just like, you know, well, what's your name? Alder. No, that doesn't quite fit you. How's King sound? You know, and they're just like, yeah, okay, sure. And of course, we know that throughout this time frame, at least within, because if it was like about 30 years ago or so, or over 30 years ago, that King and Kaido met, somewhere in that time frame, they probably would have had a conversation with, like, maybe, you know, Kaido had said that he was the man who's going to change the world, and in King's eyes, that was, oh, this is the man, this is like Joy Boy, and that's why, you know, King probably thought that Kaido was supposed to be this new version of Joy Boy, because we know that the Lunarians were around before the world government took over, before Marie Joie was built. they lived on the Red Line, and then King grew up probably with all of these different, possibly grew up with stories of, Joy Boy and like what had happened, like maybe not like a huge amount of knowing what was going on in the Void Century, but maybe like, the legends of Joy Boy were like passed down and everything, because we know that like that got passed down through the slaves for Nika, and that, maybe, King is now, was somewhat aware, maybe not that, that Nika was Joy Boy necessarily, or that like, there's the devil fruit, of course, with the Gummo Gummo no Mi. Maybe he didn't know that much, but he at least kind of maybe knew some stuff, and like he told Kaido some stuff about that, and that's why Kaido kind of, knows who Joy Boy is, even without having gone to, Laugh Tale, and without having read all of the different poneglyphs, because he cannot read poneglyphs, and neither can King. Although I would point out that, and this is just a side note, and we know that the poneglyphs were made on Wano. We know that Odin could read them. We know that, Robin can read them, but she studied to read them, and then Odin was kind of raised to be able to read them by, his father. But I had the thought that, well, maybe the Lunarians might have the ability to read them as well, but I'm like, no, because they would have already been like, toppled, or like during the same time frame that the poneglyphs would have been made. They were, being toppled from the Red Line and like run off by the world government at that point in time, by the new celestial dragons that were, coming into power at that point in time, the 20 kings. 19 kings, but you get the idea. Were like, being run off. Now, there is a theory that, and I'm going on another tangent, there is a theory that like, oh, maybe the Lunarians were originally allies of Joy Boy, and that's why, King has put so much faith in Kaido. King has had this thought that, Kaido can be Joy Boy, that Kaido can be the one to bring about this change in the world. And admittedly, yes, Kaido was on the path of wanting to make a huge change in the world, having new Onigashima being Wano, and, having the mass weapons production factories and everything just to give him more weapons, as many smiles as possible to give him more strong crew members, all of that. Now, we also do not know when King got his devil fruit. He may not have had it at the time when he was at Punk Hazard. He probably got a hold of that later on, and during that time frame, it would have been, maybe Kaido and King found the devil fruit, and it's just like, maybe they had an encyclopedia or something like that, and it's just like, King, eat this. Kaido looks it over. King, eat this devil fruit. Why? I don't know. Maybe it'll turn you into a dinosaur. Okay, Captain. Poof, dinosaur. That's the legitimate answer of like, okay, how did that happen? Or did they know that it was the Pteranodon devil fruit? We don't know. But we know that over the years, King has remained extremely loyal to Kaido, and has kind of, looked up to Kaido. And Kaido has been kind of, well, to a degree, a father figure, because we don't know anything else about, like, what happened to King's actual parents or anything like that. And, King is just, like, devoted to Kaido. When we see that in the flashback, we see that there's that same mentality between, to a degree, between him and Kaido as there was, or a similar mentality that there is between Kaido and King as there is between Luffy and Zoro, because we see that during the flashback that we get of King during his and Zoro's fight, which is going to be beautiful to watch when it's animated. And, oh god, all the fangirls are just going to go even more gaga over King when he's, like, animated without his mask on. I will admit, I will possibly be one of them. But, we see how much, how much King, I wouldn't say adores Kaido. I wouldn't say that. I would say, idolizes him, not worships, not adores, but like idolizes him to a degree. He will kind of, it's kind of the Kaido, King will jump if Kaido says how high type of a thing, a little bit of that. And King and Kaido get along a lot better than like Kaido and Queen. I will do a slight mention here. Queen, I don't remember if we ever got like a full age on Queen. But we do know that he was part of MADS, and that would have disbanded over 25, 26, 30-ish years ago. And we don't know how old Queen was at the time. We know that he's probably around the same age as Judge, because Judge was also part of MADS. But we don't know exactly. I think Judge is in his 50s, if I remember correctly. I think Judge is in his 50s. So Queen was like probably full grown and everything. And if any father figure was around for Queen, it probably would have been like Vegapunk. But even then, not so much. So Queen and Kaido wouldn't have had like that, father son, parent child ish at all relationship. That wouldn't have been there. But and like King and Queen do not get along. We've seen that from the very beginning when they're both on. Anytime they're both there, they both argue with each other. They do not get along at all. And then like they riff on Jack. I'm going to talk about Jack too. But they riff on Jack a lot, and like just Jack the drought, Jack the Jack the drowned. So we do kind of see that there as well. But we don't know that much exactly about like everything that's happened in like the 30-ish whatever years that like Kaido and King have been around each other. And then I'm going to talk about Yamato now. So Yamato is obviously Kaido's biological daughter, son, whatever you want to go with there. And it's, we haven't really seen anything in regards to how their relationship was pre-Odin. We've seen everything post-Odin. We've seen a lot post-Odin for how they interact. But pre-Odin, we do not know. I've seen a lot of different fan art that people have done of like, little Yamato and Kaido. There's also lots of fan art of, and that I love this, that it's of King having to babysit Yamato, Jack, Ulti, and Page 1. I love that artwork of just like, it's like one of them that I've seen, and I can't put it in the video because I don't want to use it without the person's permission, but it's just like, King at the supermarket with like Yamato sitting in the cart, and then I think like Jack was there too, and then like Ulti and Page 1 are like in like the baby carrier or something, and I'm just like, oh god, just like all that funny stuff of just like how they all interact with each other, and that King was already part of the crew by the time Yamato was born, because Yamato is 28 years old. And, since we don't know anything about, like, Yamato's mother, I've done a whole video about that, but it's like, okay, so how did... It's just like, yeah, King would have had to help, babysit Yamato and the others whenever Kaido was, I don't know, off pillaging somewhere. I just find that so funny. That whole concept, but we don't know that much about like how Yamato and Kaido's relationship was before everything happened with Odin. We know that, Yamato was at Odin's execution and saw everything that happened there and just was like so enamored with what Odin did with like his, his feat of strength with the Hour of Legend and everything. And then of course we know that Yamato found, the book, the log book and everything, like has held on to that for the past 20 years and, has read it and probably has memorized the thing cover to cover. And, probably Yamato probably has like her own theories for, what exactly, is the One Piece, is on Laugh Tale, because that's not written in the book, or we don't think that's written in the book, but like has like her own theories for like what happened. I bet like she's like doing like the One Piece theories the way that we are. So if we take this, put it over here, and then they had this, it's just like, I can picture that. But we know that, after what happened with Odin, that Kaido locked Yamato up within, the cell in the dungeon with the other samurai and everything to, try to either scare Yamato into like coming back to Kaido to be loyal to Kaido again, because it's just like, oh, these other samurai will kill her because she's my daughter, or they'll threaten to kill her because she's my daughter. And of course the samurai don't, and of course Yamato, they help Yamato with like reading through the logbook and everything. And, so we've seen that, and we've seen over the years just like all the different flashbacks that we've gotten of Yamato with, she's got the chains on her, the cuffs on her that she's had for, well, they have to have been the same cuffs that have been on her since she was in the cave, and they'll explode if she leaves the island. I don't remember if, like, because I can never remember if they had stated specifically like the cuffs will explode if you leave Onigashima, or if the cuffs will explode if you try to leave Wano. But in her case, they specifically are the cuffs will explode if you try to leave Onigashima. And we kind of saw that in the beauty of the episode that was episode 1015. And it's just like that whole episode. I mean, I did watch that, and I'm just like, yeah, no, that's when they do get that into the English and the English dub, however many years from now that is, when they do get to that, that's going to be like one of the big episodes that everybody's going to be like talking about again. I think then with like all the English voice actors thrown in and everything, and whoever they get to voice Yamato. I don't know who they're going to get to voice Yamato for the English dub, but we'll see what happens. Yamato is going to be an interesting one for who they get to voice her. And then King is possibly also going to be a very interesting one for who they have voice King, depending on how they do that. And of course, the English voice for Odin is probably going to be a very, very important one as well. But when we get to Onigashima, or when we get to Wano, of course. But the beauty of that episode, several of the scenes in that episode have Yamato's hands, particularly the scenes where it's her remembering, when Ace died, when like his Viva card burned up, we see her hands just covered in bandages that she probably, put on herself or whatever from the last time that she tried to escape, the last time she tried to fight her father. And, just her hands and her arms covered in bandages. And, she stated to Luffy that, like, my father has, I've been beaten so many times, from trying to fight him, and like, I defy him and he beats me more, and just, all of that. And it's just like, it's just, And of course, we know that, Yamato at some point, after she escaped from the cell on Onigashima, she ate the devil fruit. She found the Makami devil fruit and she ate that. We don't know exactly when that was, but I would also point out that with the amount of control that she has over her devil fruit, I don't think that the cuffs are sea prism stone. Or if they are, then how would she be? I apologize for the noise in the background. Someone's getting our recycling is being picked up. But I don't know if Yamato has, it's like, I don't think the cuffs are sea prism stone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have as much control over her devil fruit as she does during the fight that we see her have with Kaido. She wouldn't have had the ability to have, all that experience fighting with it. And, Kaido is well aware, of course, that she has the devil fruit and everything, and she's able to control it. So I don't think they're sea prism stone, but I don't remember if that was ever mentioned. But we see her in the cuffs, and we see in the episode of also like her trying to, break off the cuffs so that way she can go and try to help Ace, even though she has no idea where he is, and his Viva card, burned up and everything. And, at the end of that, the end of that flashback is, Kaido, he's been like, he'd been stopped by Shanks, so he went back to, Wano, and like, it's like, my son's causing trouble again, and he gets up, and like, they go off, and like, they find Yamato on the cliffs, and, he shows up there with his crew, and like, then, him and Yamato fight, and, and that was like 2 years ago, so we don't know, Yamato, unfortunately, probably got her butt kicked, and, we don't know. I had a thought at some point that that even though Kaido beat her up, would beat Yamato up and everything, that he would then have like King or have like Queen or like some of the other doctors, like, treat her and bandage her and, fix her wounds and everything like that, because, Kaido has said that she's a very good soldier, if she would just frickin' listen to me. And so we've seen that. So I wouldn't have been surprised if Kaido would have, like, okay, I beat Yamato, she's down, bandage her up, get her medicine, whatever. I don't want her to die because she's a good she's, if she does finally ever decide to, like, work with me, if she ever decides to work with me, then, if I ever, like, break her enough that she does come back and, like, fights for me, then she will be very strong. And of course, we know that Yamato also is one of the 3 female characters that we've seen that has conquers haki, has all 3 kinds of haki. But, there's that whole thing there. It's just like, I don't know. And, I think I've mentioned before, like, since we don't know that much about, like, how their relationship was before Odin, and I think I mentioned in the Who is Yamato's Mother video that I made, that Kaido, that Yamato's mother either, I've said, like, died in childbirth is one of them, saw what Kaido was turning into and left and, like, couldn't take Yamato with her, or, is, died at some point between, Yamato's birth and maybe what happened on, with Odin and everything, died in that time frame, or is still around and just is, doesn't care what Kaido does to their own child. And, if it was, like, the whole Yamato, if it was Yamato's mother died in childbirth, then Kaido may have a bit of a problem with Yamato in that already, and, like, may have just, like, yeah, you're my daughter, you're my only princess, but I don't have much that I care to do with you. Although I have seen some very adorable artwork. There's, like, there's a couple of adorable artworks that they have for, like, little Yamato with Kaido, and one of them was, it's, like, Kaido, like, sitting there, like, I don't know if he's reading the paper or whatever, like, reading the World Economic Journal or whatever, like, looking over, I guess, paperwork for Onigashima, because, it took 5 years to build the castle, and he has to fill out paperwork, and there's other, he's got to get supply orders, and, he's got to make sure that there's enough sake, because, once the building's built, they're going to have a big party in the building, probably, all of that. Kaido has paperwork he has to do occasionally. I'm sure he's a Yonko. I'm sure that Big Mom also has paperwork that she's had to do in the past. I'm sure Whitebeard had, like, paperwork supplies he had to fill out at times too. I mean, like, not everything of being a Yonko is all fun and games. It's not all fun and games and battles and parties. But it's just like Kaido's sitting there, and, like, on his shoulder is, like, because, like, size comparisons for, like, even how, Yamato was, quite a good size even as a child probably because of her Oni blood, but, it's just, like, her on Kaido's shoulder, and it's, like, it's even stated to be specifically pre-Odin, pre what happens with Odin, and it's just, like, her just, like, laying on Kaido's shoulder, and he's got, like, a blanket over her to keep her warm while he's, like, sitting there reading, and I'm like, that is adorable, but that is adorable. But we don't know how, like, accurate that is. And it might be someone will be like, oh my God, I was right. Like, maybe they had a really good relationship and then it just went bad. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jack, and then I've got Ulti on page 1, and then I'll be finished. So, the relationship that Jack has with Kaido. He is the quote-unquote, kind of the third right hand, because we got King, and then we got Queen, and then we got Jack. And then, like, if Yamato was what her father wanted her to be his perfect soldier, would listen to him and everything, Yamato would probably be quote-unquote the ace of the deck. The ace within his, card-themed crew, King, Queen, Jack, and then ace, and then Kaido at the top. Probably would be what that was, but that's not the case. And we know that Jack is very loyal to Kaido, because Jack is kind of what he probably wanted Yamato to be, is this loyal subordinate, is, will do what he says, will, even to the point of, even to the point of, Jack went back to attack, went to go and attack, Zoe again, and got knocked into the water again. And, Kaido apparently at least cared enough to, he's like, he's strong enough, go and dig him up out of the water. Don't know how they did that, but they got Jack out of the water because the majority of the crew have devil fruits. So I don't know how they got Jack out of the water after what happened with Zoe, but they got him somehow. They saved him somehow. But, we know that Jack has been on the crew, I think at least for 20 years, because I think they say that there's like a young Jack at the battle with Odin maybe, but we don't know exactly, when he joined the crew. I don't think he was like found by Kaido as a baby and brought onto the crew, but maybe he found him like, he's strong enough or whatever. Yeah, we'll make him a cabin boy or whatever. And then, Jack just like worked his way through the ranks and eventually did, got his hands on, the mammoth devil fruit and, became, Jack the Drought and everything. And, he still very much idolizes Kaido. He tried to go to Dressrosa to try to interfere with everything that happened with Dressrosa, with like, Doflamingo being captured. He tried to stop that, and then he got, sent back. And then of course, the Minx, Zunisha, whack. Bye-bye. Now if it had been whack, and then wherever he lands, go over there, step, squish. Maybe I've got a little bit better. And we do know that Kaido has shown some form of compassion or concern for Jack, after Jack battled against Itarashi and Nekomamushi on the roof when they were transformed into their Sulong forms during that whole battle up on top of the roof between Jack and I think it was some of Jack's section of his crew and then like I think one of the numbers or whatever, when like the Minx battled them on the roof of Onigashima way back at the beginning of that battle. And they got a lot of wounds in on Jack, and like Kaido was like Jack, stop, go rest or whatever. He was like concerned about Jack's well-being in that regard. But we haven't really seen Kaido that worried about anybody else. I'm assuming he would be somewhat worried about like what happened with King, just considering how long King has been part of his crew and everything, and how even though they have the captain first mate kind of relationship, I'm assuming Kaido still at least somewhat cares about King because this goes back to King, I guess, but like King, King has been wearing his his gimp suit mask for quite a while, but I'm assuming Kaido is one of the very few people that he actually takes it off in front of because he trusts Kaido and Kaido knows what he looks like anyway. And I don't know if like Jack and Queen would qualify for that as well, that like maybe they've seen it and like Queen maybe just figured out who, Jack's a King's a Lunarian. I just, the wings give it away. The wings and the fire give it away. That type of a thing. Although I do actually wonder if there is like a Hito version of a Lunarian. Maybe. The Hito version model Lunarian. Because there's, the Hito version model, Nika, Hito just regular version, that's what Chopper has, and Hito Daibutsu, Mythical Zone Daibutsu, what Sengoku has. So maybe there is a Lunarian version of the Devil Fruits, but I don't know. Maybe there's also a Tontada version of the Devil Fruit as well, but I don't know. I don't think Oda's ever going to show that, but, that's there. But, Kaido has shown some form of concern for Jack and everything, and he probably would show concern for like King. King got his wing cut off by Kaido, by Zoro, and we don't know where King landed at this point in time. But he's majorly injured at this point in time, so yeah, Kaido may be somewhat concerned about that when he finds out what happens, depending on what happens with him. Finally, we're going to talk about Ulti and Page 1. So, in regards to Ulti and Page 1, Ulti is 22 years old, Page 1 is 20 years old. And we know that they were born in the Grand Line at some point in time. And somewhere in that time frame, their father, who we don't know who their father was, but he was stated to be like a former crewmate of Kaido or an acquaintance of Kaido. So there's a whole possibility that, was he part of like, Rox's crew back, way back when 38 years ago, and Kaido knew him that way, or was it just some other pirate that Kaido knew somewhere within that time frame? and like they were born, and Ulti and Page One were born, and they had their father or whatever, and then like their father died, and then like they just wound up with Kaido, whether it was like oh, our father died, so like they have their crew take them to Wano at that point in time, because Odin would have definitely, or Kaido would have definitely been set up on Wano, because we don't know exactly when they got to Wano, when Ulti and Page One ended up in Wano, but I have a theory about that. But they were taken to Wano somehow, and then Kaido basically kind of adopted them into his crew, and then at some point years later, they both got their hands on the 2 devil fruits, on the Pachycephalosaurus devil fruit for Ulti, and onto the Spinosaurus devil fruit for Page One, and they ate those. And they also probably trained with their armament and observation hockey, and trained up and everything, and then they became members of the Tobi-Roppo, with quote like Page One kind of being the weakest member of the Tobi-Roppo, but we don't know exactly where like Ulti falls in that scale as well, because there's also Drake was in there, and there's also I don't know why, but I think I like the idea of like Ulti and Drake being a couple. I don't know why, but I don't think that would happen, but that would be an interesting couple if it did. But I don't think that would happen, but that's a different topic. And I've talked about like Ulti and Page One's relationship in and of themselves, and like my Brother's Day and Sister's Day videos last year. And like I've talked about like Kaido as a father to a degree in like some other videos as well, but in overview of it in this video. But Ulti and Page One very much have the relationship of the big sister that is very protective of her little brother, unless she's the one picking on him, because it's just like, you hurt my Pei Pei. So yeah, we have that. But so we see that with their relationship, but what we also know is that Ulti is very loyal to Kaido, because like she's attacking when she's like attacking Nami, it's just like she's got Nami like dead to rights, holding her, has headbutted her at least once, with the fact of Nami's forehead is bleeding, and she's just like, take it back, your captain will not be king of the pirates and everything. Nami's just like, no, Luffy will be king of the pirates, that whole moment. And Ulti is just very angry about that. But then there's other times where it's just like Luffy said that he's going to be king of the pirates, and Ulti is just like, oh no, and then like headbutts Luffy. And there's a lot of that happens with Ulti and Page One. Not so much Page One. I mean, like, Page One is probably still loyal to Kaido, but I think Ulti kind of takes it to the 10th degree. But then there's also literally some of the first things we hear Ulti say about Kaido is when all the Tobi-Roppo are gathered together to go speak with Kaido. And Ulti is just like sitting there, and it's just like, Kaido's an idiot. Why do we have to go after Yamato? That's his own problem. Just like that whole thing. I love that. Kaido's an idiot. You worship the man. Never mind. But so we have that. I did have a thought in regards to like exactly how Ulti and Page One got to Wano, because there's the whole thing of there's the options of either A, their father, this former acquaintance of Kaido, was dying, and it's just like, well, maybe Kaido just happened to be the closest one at the time, since we don't know who it was. And like, it took them to Onigashima, took them to Wano, and like got an audience with Kaido. And it's just like, I'm dying. I've got 2 kids. We don't know how old they would have been at the time. Maybe they were at least somewhat strong or whatever, at least take them in. They can prove themselves, but at least take them in and, take care of them for a little while, and, whatever. And, like, Kaido did that. Obviously, whatever the form of happened, Kaido took in Ulti and Page One. We know that. And we know that Ulti is one that stole the 2 devil fruits. So that, like, impressed Kaido, I guess, down the line. And I don't remember if we ever find out exactly how long the 2 of them have had their devil fruits. And the other option is basically, like, I don't know, like, their, Ulti and Page One's father died somewhere, and then, like, either they got, like, a message to Kaido, or the king, or, like, their father's crew, like, took them to Kaido and explained who they were, and then Kaido took them in. It all basically resulted in Kaido took them in. Same thing with the whole of, like, to a degree, we don't know how Big Mom got her hands on the Uenomi, but she did it, and then she gave it to Kaido at God Valley. That's the extent of what we know for that. We know that Ulti and Page One ended up with Kaido somehow after their father died. Or just before their father died, depending on the circumstances. But that's what we have. Those are the 4-ish main characters that are, or 5, excuse me, Ulti, Page One, Yamato, King, and Jack, that are all kind of fall into the quote-unquote can be kind of children of Kaido. Although, also I will put in here for Ulti and Page One, they also view Yamato as an enemy. Because Yamato, even though she's Kaido's daughter, Ulti despises her because she refuses to submit to Kaido. She refuses to acknowledge Kaido as being the strongest. And Ulti very much has that same mentality of those who are less strong should serve the strongest, and then on down the line, that hierarchy of strength. And I don't know, maybe one of the tests for joining the Toby Roppo, depending on stuff, is just Kaido, use your armament and try to attack me, and, depending on how much damage you quote-unquote cause, I'll make you a Toby Roppo. Maybe it was Ulti, changed into her Pachycephalosaurus form and, activated her, just, headbutted him entirely with her hockey and, didn't bruise him, didn't hurt Kaido, but it's just okay, yeah, you can be one. What about Page One? Sure, he can be a Toby Roppo too. But Yamato or Ulti was just extremely angry about Yamato, going against Kaido and swearing revenge against Yamato. In regards to that, although there wouldn't have really been a time frame in regards to, because Ulti and Page One is only 20 years old, so the earliest that they would have ended up being at Onigashima is maybe 19 years ago. So that still would have been after Yamato was kind of, quote unquote, on the run or in hiding or whatever from Kaido. And so there's that. So there wouldn't have been a time between when Yamato was a kid and Ulti and Page One showed up where it's before there wasn't a time they wouldn't know about how Yamato and Kaido's relationship was before everything happened with Odin. The main one that I guess you could ask about that would have been King. King and Queen would maybe be able to give you some information about oh yeah, King or Yamato and Kaido had a decent relationship, and then things happened with a samurai and a giant pot of oil, and a certain hour passed, and the relationship shifted, just that whole thing. But we know that anytime that Kaido tries to, Kaido has said that Yamato would have been a very valuable soldier and everything had she, done what Kaido wanted her to do. But we also know that, Yamato, even though she fights with a Kanabo the same way that Kaido does, she very much more she wants to learn how to, she's got attacks that are an homage to, Odin to a degree. So, we'll see what happens. At the moment that I'm recording this, we haven't gotten any additional flashbacks for Kaido and Kaido and Yamato, in regards to maybe part of their relationship. But, at the moment, I'm literally recording this during, the week after, the giant fist is coming down on Kaido, and Dragon Kaido, from Luffy. So it may, we may get some information. We may not. If we do, then, I'll probably make another video where I amend a statement or two or something like that, or make a comment about that. But at the moment, we do not know any additional information. At whatever point in time we do get additional information about, the Kaido Yamato flashback, anything with Yamato's mother, or any additional information, I'll probably make a video about that. So, that's what we have. I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. And if you have any other theories about or any other comments about Yamato and Kaido's relationship or something that I missed, because there's a possibility that I missed something, of course. If there's something there that you want to put in there, pop that down, or just like Kaido's relationship with like King or whatever, that whole thing. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice day. Bye.
I recognize your value as a soldier, Yamato.